Welcome to the Executives Lounge. This is your podcast host, Christine Fonner. We are in season 3, where we continue our mission to redefine leadership one amazing story at a time. The Executives Lounge is more than just a podcast. It's a movement towards highlighting what leadership needs to be to practice wholeness, empathy, and provide real-world impact in an ever-changing world. Let's get started. When I met Charese Chambers, I felt like she was just a powerhouse of intelligence, professionalism, and tenacity. Within 2 minutes of talking together, we got down to real conversations and probably dropped an F-bomb or 2 or 4 or 10. I can't remember now. Charese comes to us from Richmond, Virginia. She's a small business strategist and coach, and she's the owner of Financial Fancy, and has dedicated her career and the podcast to talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and the real parts of small business ownership. We talked today about Financial Fancy and her journey to get there. Charese, I'm so glad you're here today. Hi.
Hi.
So let's talk about Financial Fancy, because I think a lot of conversations I've had lately with women about finances and financial literacy and recognizing the importance of financials and understanding how to run your financials as a business has been top of the priority list lately. Tell me about where you came from and how you became this Financial Fancy expert and owner.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I am the eldest of 7 children. My mom did not have all these babies. I actually have a stepmom. My dad got remarried, had 4 kids. My mom has 2 other children besides me. So I'm the only one made by my mom and dad. All girls, yes, all girls. I have no brothers. I'm the oldest. My youngest sister is 15 years younger than me. My next sister to me, we're 6 years apart. So there's quite a bit of age gap. I almost feel like the only child. I'm the oldest. I've always loved numbers. Numbers was always my jam growing up. My stepmom ingrained in me numbers. She saw that I had a knack for it, and we would be simply in the grocery store. And she was like, all right, it's $3.34. I'm going to give them $10. How much is my change? I'm like, $6.66. Like, I just know I can do those numbers even to this day. Probably not that number in particular, because we don't like 666, but I can do that kind of math in my head. Even shopping sales, it's 25% off. How much is it? You know, things of that nature. And because she fed into that, specialty in the way that my brain thinks, numbers have always been easy to me. I love numbers. I love the way that they function. Financial Fancy really was a tax preparation. Actually, she was called Capital Fundamentals in 2006. I did taxes, just taxes. I had no desire to be a coach or all the things that she has evolved into. Very quickly realized small business owners, when I was doing Schedule Cs, did not understand tax deductions, what they could deduct, what the tax code was. So 2018, I actually got an LLC, went through a rebranding. Financial Fancy was born. She got a website, all the things that we need beyond the aesthetics of being an entrepreneur. Kind of dabbled right into the educational piece of it all. And now Financial Fancy is a resource and hub of education for the financial piece of being a business owner, from startup to 5-10 years. I've helped clients scale to their first 6 figures with tangible, strategy and goals and things of that nature. I am pivoting to service only based businesses. It's just easier to do the tangibles with them and do coaching. I have a couple of physical product based individuals in my portfolio, and I'm going to keep them. We're going to stand beside them, but they prove to be a little bit more difficult because they need other components like marketing managers and stuff like that, and things that's just not my expertise. And as I'm going into my 40s, I no longer want to do things that are not my favorite. So I think I've earned that right since I've been in business since 2006. So Financial Fancy is getting another facelift. She's not changing her name. She's not doing rebranding, but she's got a lot of things in the works.
That's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
So many things that we could talk about. The first thing that came to my mind was, what are you finding is the biggest blind spot for women in business or for business in general?
First, the way that they conceptualize it, I think all these conversations are nuances to me, especially you, Christine. We've both been in business for a long time, right? I think people fall in love with the aesthetics. I think people think the end goal is actually getting an LLC when it's just the beginning line, right? Because now you have to think about, how are you going to show up on social media? Do you even need to show up on social media? My mentor, she's a multi-millionaire and she doesn't even have a social media presence anywhere. I remember when I first met her, I was like, oh, what's your LinkedIn? Because I didn't want to ask her for an Instagram, God forbid. Right? I was like, I'm not asking a millionaire for an Instagram. She was like, oh, I don't have a LinkedIn. I was like, oh, really? You can really make money and not have to have a social media presence. And it gave me another thought process of like, what does it look like to not have a social media presence and be able to make multiple millions of dollars, right? I mean, I was just texting her the other day and I was like, oh, just checking in. This is Mother's Day. Hope you had a great Mother's Day. And she was like, oh, we have to get together. I'm flying out to Paris tomorrow. Like, small flex on me. Okay, we'll talk when you get back. I love this for you.
You know, my first mentor I ever had was back in probably 2003, and he never did marketing. And at that time, social media wasn't really a big thing, but he always felt that business development was best through word of mouth and through reputation. And I've brought that with me up to today. And so I absolutely agree that, you know, my business hope and my business foundation has been in the community, in the reputation, and really in the work. So tell me about your work and how you're impacting in that way.
Oh, I mean, I wish I had it with me. I had to check my PO box, but I got Millennial on the Move. It is a community nominated and voted. It was my first big award that I got for Financial Fancy. I didn't even know what this award was. And it was just the beginning. The very next year I got Young Professional. In 2022, I got Best Business Person, community-wide. Now, this is voted on everyone on a bigger scale. Still someone nominating you, putting your hat in, and I won Best Mentor and Coach. I have moved out of the city I was living in prior to and still winning awards because my work. Now, listen, I just posted today, I gave a very transparent Instagram. If y'all love it, money motivations, right? And today I was like, listen, I don't always get it right. And the more I have an understanding that failure is actually the process and to fall in love with it as an entrepreneur, the closer I get to actually my win. I also have a podcast called Business After Dark. And maybe the first 10 episodes, I did one, customer service. Your customer service is trash. That's what it's titled. And I never talk about other people. I'm talking about me. These are life experiences of my own. I was scared to answer emails. I hated checking my text messages. It was just almost anxiety driven because I, had my first experience giving someone a refund, someone saying they didn't have a 100%, great experience with Financial Fancy, course correcting. You can't, if Walmart has a whole return section, what more do we need to also think of our own small business owners in anticipation, because everyone's not going to be open arms and glitter. But the community aspect for me is a big deal, and collaboration locally and amongst other small, just us, our conversations, we're connected forever and ever and ever, right? We're friends in real life. When you get to a certain space in your business, collaboration is all you have. The network is what's going to get you to that next stage. I've made 6 figures. I want to be a millionaire like my mentor. And I know that it comes along with, knowing the right people. There is something to be said, as much as people don't want to admit it. Having, I think it was broken up into 3 terms. Like, you have a cheerleader who's just a friend, someone who, maybe they don't get all the business stuff. They just like, oh, I love what you're doing. They repost your stuff. And then you have like a friend who's like your equal, and you guys can exchange thoughts and processes and word dump on each other. And then you have a sponsor, someone who that's how I got those awards. Someone was vouching for me that I didn't even know and saying my names in rooms where I was not present. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I talk a lot about the difference between mentorship and advocacy, that Mentorship is giving advice, it's supporting someone, it's cheerleading, it's believing in somebody, offering up educational advice on where opportunities may exist. An advocate is a person who's willing to put themselves on the line and throw your resume to the top of the list, or put you in front of the right person, or make that phone call for you. It's a huge difference between seeing an opportunity and being given an opportunity to shine. And I think that's a huge difference in terms of growth, right? That we have to find those advocates in life that like give us those opportunities that actually push us to the next level.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's most definitely needed. And it sometimes can be hard. I have run across a couple of clients, telling them that they need to find a mentor or coach in their industry, that I'm not privy to. And that sometimes it's hard. Sometimes people are busy. And one of the parts is also having the understanding that everyone has their own capacity. And then also everyone doesn't have that space to be a mentor either. Even though you like them, they might not know what that means. And it's good. I've mentored people too. Very good to define what that mentorship needs to look like. I've been in mentorships where I had to always reach out. Like basically was like, hey, I got a situation. Can I take you out to lunch so I can pick your brain, whatever? A simple lunch. Listen. And then some people pay for mentorship. I have coaching, I guess that could be also considered a mentorship, who people pay, and they get designated time and all that fun stuff. So, but the other part is you got to be teachable. I did a mentorship for a year, and I don't think I will offer that package anymore that long. Only thing about I've learned in coaching people is they still got to do the work. And I think sometimes as you're giving them advice, they're like thinking some magic will happen. And I'm just like, no, I'm telling you, to do this, you have to do this. And now you have to do that unless you pay somebody to do it. That's not what you paying me to do. You telling me to give you the advice on how to do the thing, and this is what it looks like. But I
Totally.
can't do the do for you. That doesn't work. And I think people need to have a better understanding of what they're signing up for when they get a coach. Now, I will also say, I didn't hit my first 6 figures until I got a coach. There was things that I didn't know. There are rooms that I could not have access to until I got a coach who was like, hey, do
Yeah.
this, and this. And I was like, let's do this, and this. And then it was like, things just rocketed for me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I always say everybody needs a coach, and you first have to understand your priorities, right? There's a wheel of expertise that you can look at, whether it's financial, business, emotional, physical, whatever it is. But you have to be able to first prioritize what your needs are, and then everybody needs a coach. And you're absolutely right. It's a person that can give you advice, holds you accountable, gives you some strategy, might maybe open up some new ideas for networking and development, but ultimately you have to do the work.
Yep.
To that point, when you're looking at your clients, there's usually like 3 barriers to somebody saying, okay, I'm ready, right? And it's usually time, money, and responsibility. How do you approach that with potential clients?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of very much go back to that elevation approach, right? Like work-life harmony, like what is the priority today? If you're trying to get to your 6 figures, if you're trying to make more money, if you're trying to iron out some things, I'm of the thought process, if you work with me, I can show you how to do it once so you can multiply it. So just think, if you could just commit 6 weeks or 6 months, each program's different, what place it would put you later. I'm telling you, if you do this, I'm not saying I can't guarantee you how much money you're going to make, but what I can say is my track record says you go at least increase your revenue sales 20 to 50%. Just do what it tells you to do.
I tell you to do.
It's almost like weight loss, right? We all know we're supposed to move our bodies 30 minutes, drink some water, and eat, good things for your body. But somehow I done got into this Chick-fil-A line again. I don't know how to get here. I continue to make decisions that are counterproductive to the goals that I have down. So Sunday, I stopped and was like, all right, Charese, what is it that you want? Because cognitive dissonance will have you fighting in your mind about where you want to be and where your comfort zone is. And all the books I've read for the last 3 years collectively have the same theme, that human nature is for us to be comfortable naturally. Your brain does not know how to conceptualize change and correlated to danger almost, right? Like there's no difference in your parents saying, Christine, get you a 9 to 5. Work at that good old job that got 401s and stuff. That sounded cute maybe about 20 years ago, but now jobs aren't matching 401ks. And now my sister, 15 years old, she easily can be an influencer on the TikToks and make 6 figures, right? You know, we are conceptualizing job positions that we never thought of.
It's
And also,
archaic at this point, right? Like we're
yes,
looking at the job trajectory and we're looking at career pathways in archaic ways. Absolutely. It's dead. That whole system is dead, and it never really worked for anyone anyways. That's why it's dead.
right. And I think basically what's happening is corporate America and capitalism in itself is catching up to all the bad treatment that they've been doing to people. And they're like, especially COVID happened when people were like, oh, you know, we'll get this unemployment. And they're like, actually, I was able to make it work, you know, pay bills and keep a roof over our head, struggling a little bit and not work. Like, I don't need to be working at this job that got me staying up at night, got anxiety, and I don't feel 100% myself, and figuring out another way.
You know, speaking about cognitive dissonance, that's one that I think leaders are really experiencing, is this idea that people don't want to work. No, people want to work. They don't want to be slaves to corporate America. That's the difference. It's a
That's the
cognitive dissonance for leaders. We like working. We
right,
don't like sacrificing ourselves for the work.
right. I was having a conversation with a client. I just put them on payroll, and I said we need to have a conversation about compensation packages. I said I think it's a good time to introduce the conversation and think that your employees have to have a customizable plan, because what we used to give people, like, yes, people still want healthcare, yes, but it looks different, right? I would take a high deductible with a HSA, and more vacation days. But yeah, customizing it to fit the client and what they need. And sometimes employers actually come on top because they've asked their employees what they want, and they're able to accommodate. I mean, would you rather pay a higher health deductible, but your employees really like, you know what, all I want is like an extra 3 days of PTO? What are we talking about here? And I find, again, the studies show people who like what they do, love what they do, they actually do more work.
You know, we've mentioned a couple of times that you're heading into your 40s, and I'm in my 40s. And I I like to say that when I hit my 40s, like the last flying fuck like just flew right out the window.
Listen, that one I saw it leave yesterday. Be honest with you. I saw it leave yesterday. Okay.
And it's so liberating to be like, you know what? I'm seriously just done with all the bullshit. I'm not doing that anymore. Joy is what matters. Care is what matters. Loving is what matters.
If you have the express application on that, I'd like to sign up, because that's where I'm at right now. Yes.
You know, I was talking to somebody the other day about your 20s, and like, I've never met a woman from 25 to 29 that wasn't going through some shit. Like
No.
25 to 29, it's like you're trying to figure out your career. You're trying to figure out being an adult now, because you're really an adult. You're trying to figure out like first big relationship, probably big relationship breakup, something like that. You're not allowed to like really depend on your parents anymore because you're too old for that, but like you're not really big enough to like take care of
Right.
yourself. That frontal lobe cortex is still
Right.
developing. Like you're a mess. You're really a mess. And you're trying to figure out who's your real friend and who's not your real friend. And then your 30s are pretty rad. And then like real stuff starts happening. Divorces start happening. Mortality becomes real. People you know are passing. You have people that are dealing with real life tragedies and traumas. I mean, it gets real. And I think that's what, I mean, we can joke about it and say like, oh yeah, I'm super old. I talk about, you know, all these funerals I go to are like, oh, this person divorced and that's another one to add to the list. But I think what happens in your 40s is shit gets real. It gets real. And so, you know, you have to really be present and find the joy, because real stuff is happening and you really have to still recognize that life is really amazing that we have this consciousness that we can enjoy.
The reflective time is needed as I am downloading new things and coming to a reconciliation. Also, something I've never done before, but have done now. And I guess I'm firstly admitting this out loud. Um, Year 39 was a year of mourning, like mourning who I was. And I didn't even realize it until maybe a couple months ago in therapy. It was just like, I shed, like you said, I went through a divorce, was married for 11 years. I moved to Richmond. I had lived in Richmond for the last 20, lived in Lynchburg for the last 20 years. I mean, I'm starting over. And although everything was exciting and new, whoever Charese was, I'm not the same person. And now I'm going into my 40s. I guess I feel like now I'm shedding my skin. And now I'm ready to be like, come on, like having the party, like, let's do this.
I have felt like as I've been building this women's community and leadership and adventure, that the women that tend to come into my orbit or find this community, they're looking for that meaningful connection. They're looking for real conversations. They're looking for people that they can talk to about stuff that they care about. Like they're done with that stuff. Let's talk about the things that really matter. And I think we're just done with the noise.
We lose ourselves in the responsibilities of being all women who are married are house managers. I told my friend that the other day. I was like, you're a house manager. That is the position you signed up for to be a wife. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Y'all can argue me down with whatever you feel about that. But, you're cleaning, you're cooking, you're all the things. Even if you're sharing the task with your significant other, you are the person who manages the house and how it is functioning. And I find a lot of times, you can feel the energy of what that woman is bringing and the chaos. If she's good, then the house is running smooth. If she's not good, the house is very chaotic, all the things. But we need to figure out what our core values are so we can be implanted in who we are.
Yeah, anytime I have a new client that I bring on, I always start with core values. And then we talk about the alignment of whether or not that's actually happening in your daily life. Is your daily life reflecting your core values? And you're absolutely right. You have to ground in those core values to really understand how you perceive the world and what's important to you.
Find your tribe. That's very important. It's been very key for my elevation as well. Those core value friends, right? Don't be afraid to fail.
Don't be afraid to fail. Find your tribe and make sure you have harmony in alignment with your core values. That's a big takeaway for today.
She just tied it up in a bow for me. Listen.
And that's why you need a coaching team.
Exactly.
Charese, thank you. This was so fun. And I can't wait to just keep connecting with you. You're right. We're real life friends now.
Yes.
And I love that you have come into my orbit and mine yours. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Christine.
Until next time.
Thank you for joining us today on the Executives Lounge and the latest episode. You can find more information about Christine Fauner at christinefauner.com. And you can find more podcast episodes on Spotify, Apple, the website, christinefauner.com/podcast, or LinkedIn.